Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Sup, Craig?
Howdy.
What's up? I asked you that twice now.
Yeah. Well, we're a little out of
Howdy
practice.
is not an answer to what's up, just so you know.
No, what's up is hi. Like, no one actually answers what's up with an answer. No one says...
Yeah, they do. No, wait. Yes, they do.
Okay,
like
not
say,
much.
what's up? And you're like, exactly, that is an answer. Not
sup,
much is an answer.
But sup is like hi. Like, I'm sorry, you can say... I've answered hey to sup a million times in my life, man.
Sup. Hey.
Hey. Because sup is hello. You're not actually... You don't care what is up with the person when you say sup.
Don't assume that I don't care. I'm a very thoughtful person.
But if you're saying sup, you're not actually asking what is up. Sup is hello. That is what the slang is used for.
I guess
I'm
that's
sorry.
true.
So I answered correctly.
I might
saying
relent.
howdy.
I might relent on this one.
The howdy is just a different generation's weird
So-
hello.
So howdy. Howdy.
Anyways, this is Podcast versus Everyone.
Howdy.
Episode 94.
God, we're almost to 100. We'd have been to 100 if it wasn't for the stupid virus.
Yeah, and of us being kind of lazy and not really wanting to even bother
Yeah,
with it.
I mean, it's not really laziness. It was just like...
Apathy.
Apathy is probably a better word. Like, we're just kind of bummed out. You know, it's like, I don't know. Like, you and I both... I mean, I think we've, talked about this multiple times on the show, but... Like, I mean, there's a lot of big stuff going on in the world, and, without actual games to talk about, it was, I don't know, man. It was tough to talk myself into like, yeah, let's grind. We did this last off season, right? Like we were like, we'll just grind through it. We got some topics. We'll just, we'll grind for a month then it'll be football season.
We had multiple coaching changes. We had all sorts of stuff to talk about last off season. Yeah. We did have a coaching change this one, obviously, but we talked about that because that was almost a year ago at this point.
Yeah. It's a lot easier to talk yourself into grinding too if you know where the end is.
Yeah.
You're like, if I just grind until, the beginning of August or whatever, football camp opens and then away
August
we go.
8th or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, this whole thing's just been, we've been in a holding pattern since, since freaking March. Like, and then now we actually have like real stuff apparently,
Yep. And let me finish my introduction for people who don't always listen. I'm Craig Powers. With me, as always, is Jeff Newser.
If you don't always listen, you should always listen.
Well, now you know when one of us is talking, you'll know who is who. Our voices are pretty different.
Which one is which?
Yeah.
Our voices are pretty different. It's hilarious. I don't know if you probably do listen to a podcast where both people's voices actually sound pretty similar.
Yep.
That's like the worst.
Mm-hmm.
It's like so hard. I'm like, who is talking right now? I don't know which one is which. I hate that.
Yeah, I think people know.
Yeah, not a problem for us.
Yeah. So last time we talked about how Pac-12 football is back, and now obviously this happened a little bit like last week, but it's new to the podcast. The Pac-12 has a football schedule.
Yeah. We, which apparently Pat Chun was not too happy about, which I couldn't quite figure that out. Like what there was to complain about. I guess we have to play USC, but like.
Well, yeah, maybe he wanted to start at home. Maybe he didn't want to play the best team in the South,
I mean, I don't know. I mean, does it really matter if you start at home?
It maybe mattered to him.
I guess, but I'm like, so this is where I'm trying to figure it out, right? I'm like, Pat Chen's like, we advocated for, and I don't know how he said, I don't know what the tone was because I didn't actually hear the quote, but basically the quote was, we advocated for the schedule that we thought was best for WSU, and we weren't happy with the way the schedule turned out. And I'm kind of like, well, you got 3 games at home and 3 games on the road like everybody else, and
Maybe they would have preferred not to like have a game in Pullman on December 12th.
I don't know. Like I guess it just I don't know. I mean, everybody's only playing the one crossover game. Right. Yeah, we got USC, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a sec about how the contenders seem to get the easier draw on the crossovers, but it's like, okay, so you play USC. I mean, I guess that is like I don't know. Like, and again, I mean, USC is, it's not like that's some kind of juggernaut these days. I mean,
right.
we've beaten them. This is not 1995 where we haven't beaten them in 100 years or whatever. So anyway, I don't know. I think the schedule is fine. Like I don't know what what I was supposed to think. I do know that the most important thing is that we do not play Washington for the final game of the season.
Yep.
That's all. That's kind of all I care about, to be honest.
It's still on Black Friday.
Still on Black Friday. They are committed to Black Friday, man.
And
that's
honestly,
impressive. Actually,
I don't give a crap when I don't have to try to go.
Yeah,
that's like if it's on Black, that sounds great. I have the day off. I'll happily sit at home and have that day ruined. And then I can sadly shop, on some great deals. On whatever.
I mean, I don't even have to use it as an excuse this year to not go shopping on Black Friday, because Sarah's already like, no way I'm leaving the house on Black Friday. And I'm like, me neither. Like, I am not going to be wedging myself into Fred Meyer at 4:30 a.m. to fight over socks. Like, that is not, and pajamas. That is not happening this year for sure.
That sounds terrible. I will never do that.
It's, I'll be honest. Like,
I don't even wear pajamas.
You don't wear pajamas? What is wrong with you? You don't wear pajamas.
I wear a pair of boxers to bed. That's it. Who
I
wants
usually
to be
don't
all, sweaty in bed?
Yeah, I usually don't wear pajamas either, but the kids do. We have like a tradition where we'll get the kids, matching pajamas for Christmas Eve. So that's kind of their Christmas Eve present, is they get to open up their pajamas and put them on, and so we're not going to worry about that. But and then the other thing is, I always buy my socks for like the entire next year at the Fred Meyer thing, because they're always like, I don't know, 50% off or something.
It's funny. So, I just randomly buy socks. I got a lot of weird socks. So
you are a sock like connoisseur. Like, you have cool socks.
Yeah, it's funny. We reorganized our dressers. We got a new dresser, and I took Amanda's old dresser, and we kind of reorganized all our clothes. Like, my socks were in different places. Like, we're not very, we just had like laundry everywhere. I finally like found as many socks as I can, because we just have like the basket. That's all the socks that don't have friends, right?
Yep. Everybody's got that.
But once we actually started going through all of them, we actually had like an entire hamper of socks that don't have friends. So I started folding them, and I have too many damn socks. Like, at my sock drawer, there was not enough space for them.
Yeah.
And I had to just start like picking out pairs to throw away or whatever that I didn't really need. And like, but I have so many like different looking, unique socks. I was like, I don't know. I did find a cougar pair of socks, which is great. Which, I'll fire up on November 7th. Throw those on. But it's socks and Black Friday.
Black Friday, Apple Cups.
Probably some noon Washington game. And
I'm sure it will be.
But hey, there's no Mike Leach involved, so maybe we got a chance.
Maybe we got a chance. Yeah, I just, even if we don't have a chance, at least we have another winnable game the next week. So, it's USC, but
it's not Washington.
We
have Cal. Cal has to come play in Pullman
on December 12th. I'm sure some kind of crazy bullshit will happen in that game. There will be like 18 inches of snow on the field, and Cal will rush for 386 yards and whatever. But,
well, hey, we're not air raiding anymore, so maybe that wouldn't kill us quite as bad.
Yeah, maybe not.
I mean,
that's a good point, man. This would be a scary proposition if we were air raiding this year, starting the season in November.
Yeah, November 7th, rain in Corvallis guaranteed. November 14th. There's going to be some sort of weather.
Pretty
in
good
Pullman.
chance of
November
rain on
21st,
November 14th.
November 21st in Stanford. Good. We're good.
Yeah,
there.
that should be sunny and like 60.
Black Friday in Pullman. At best, it's going to be 20 degrees and whatever.
Yeah.
December
Ice.
4th, USC. There we go. That's a good air raid atmosphere.
Yep,
December
that should be
12th.
nice.
No.
Yeah.
but obviously, we're joking. Like the air raid had some, nice performances in weather. It's just one famously bad one. But
yes.
But
you're playing with fire, Scarecrow.
But we don't have the air raid anymore. We got the run and shoot,
which is still going to put the ball in the air like 45 times. But that's
yes, just not 55.
Just not 55 or 60.
We do have Max Borghi. So.
We do have Max Borghi.
I am interested to see how close. It's going to be weird. I assume that the line is going to be normal again and play closer to each other.
Yep.
And it's gonna look weird. Like when I've watched Mississippi State. Well, I've watched one of their games. I watched the good one, but it was so comforting, like seeing those split lines, like just
right.
and seeing all the route trees and everything.
Yep.
It's going to be just so weird. Very first snap, just seeing the linemen closer together. And I've just kind of thought of that. Very first snap against Oregon State, who hopefully has a bad defense. They were at a really bad defense last year.
Yeah. But they do have that one crazy awesome stud whose name escapes me, who didn't play in the game against us, but he's back. So... yeah, I Oregon, starting with Oregon State is good.
I mean, they're the next worst team.
It's a very winnable game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Oregon, whatever. They haven't really delivered on what everyone expects them to be quite yet.
Yeah.
I expect them to be pretty damn good, but whatever. It's a 6-game season.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we don't know.
7-game season, but
like that's one of the things we've figured out from watching, the last few weeks everybody else play is that like, stuff is. I mean, just take your best guess, right?
Yeah. So, we're talking about Leach. Like Mississippi State drops 650 yards on LSU, and then plays Kentucky and can't score an offensive touchdown.
Right. Yeah,
or can't score a touchdown. Period. But
that's crazy pants because it's like. Now, part of that was, I watched a fair amount of that game. They should have had a couple touchdowns, but Costello's receivers did not do him any favors. One of the interceptions literally went off a receiver who got 2 hands on it in the end zone. Should have been an easy touchdown. It pops up in the air and it's picked off. So they definitely should have scored some offensive points, but it's still like completely wild to imagine a Mike Leach team not scoring a touchdown because that didn't even happen during his first season in Pullman. So
yeah, they got that last second one against Utah.
Yeah, but of course it just means more in the SEC. So I'm sure.
But I have enjoyed watching the SEC kind of eat its own as the Pac-12 often does. Like it's nice. Alabama is obviously Alabama, and we can talk about that in a little bit too. Yeah. But
they got their own issues right now.
But yeah, that's when we look at our schedule, we look at what's been happening, and we'll talk more about what's been happening in the rest of college football in a little bit. But yeah, we don't really know, and we have brand new defensive coach, brand new offensive coach, brand new head coach. It's just there's so much that we're so used to just knowing what things are going to look like and what's going to happen because like Mike Leach was so consistent. And by the time he left, like we knew exactly what the offense was going to do. We knew exactly we knew the defense by the end was not going to be very good, whatever. But now it's just like I don't know. Like we probably have our defensive coordinator that seems like he's pretty good. He's putting in a new defense. We have a brand new offense. It's very timing based. I'm glad that this training camp is like slightly longer than about a week longer than the training camp you would have in the fall usually. So that's really nice considering they didn't get the 15 practices in the spring. So that's helpful. Hopeful, they're playing. I guess we can talk a little bit about what they've seen. Like obviously no one's seen anything from the practices really because they can't no reporters are going to the practices.
Yeah, nobody's seen anything.
Yeah,
other than whatever they've put out, just footage. But
yeah,
nobody's allowed to watch, which is sort of like, come on.
Yeah,
like I've gone to practices in Pullman before.
I'm
nowhere near the players. I'm sitting up. I'm very socially distanced. Like
Theo Lawson and Coug fan can't sit 30 rows up and watch practice.
They might come into contact with whatever. It's a lot of things are done in the name of the best interest of fill in the blank. A lot of things like that in college sports. Hey, can't talk to this player because needs to whatever.
Yeah, so it's like, we want to try to read the tea leaves and figure out who the quarterback's going to be. I don't know.
Good luck with that.
He said nice things about Gunnar Cruz. Okay.
Yeah.
What is, we don't know. That's the first time he's ever seen any of them play.
Yeah.
I mean, really, in a practice with pads, a couple days ago, first time he's seen, Gunnar Cruz has never played a snap. Cameron hasn't gotten in a game. Never.
No.
Yeah. And so,
nope.
These guys, none of these guys, besides the only one is the walk-on transfer from North Dakota State, Heckman.
Yeah.
And so he's the only one that's ever actually played college football before.
Yeah. I mean, they're gonna, the closest any of them have come is spring practice a year and a half ago.
Yep.
That's as close. The spring game a year and a half ago. That's as close as any of them have come. So,
and that leads to the uncertainty too. I'm sure all those guys are talented. They were really talented guys, and before coming to WSU, they were well regarded recruits. All the 3 top scholarship guys were, and so I have no doubt that they got the talent, but they're learning a brand new offense. They've never played in a game action. They're gonna, obviously I doubt there's gonna be fans in the stands at Oregon State, but it's just gonna be, basically like a high stakes scrimmage. So maybe that'll help with some of the nerves. I actually, I don't know, with a young quarterback, maybe starting on the road's a little better. There's maybe some sort of the pressure is lifted off because you're not, in your comfort zone.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
I don't know, man. I'm really curious to see kind of how it affects, these younger guys playing in an empty stadium. But I think with a brand new quarterback, I think it definitely helps.
Yeah.
Both from, I think there's a factor of obviously, you go on the road and the crowd is loud and you're intimidated and all the things you normally think of being on the road. But, one of the things also being on the road that maybe people don't always think about is, the communication piece, right? Like the communication from the coach to the quarterback, from the quarterback to the lineman, and just kind of making sure everybody's on the same page, when you're doing your adjustments at the line and blitz pickups and all that kind of stuff. And if you don't have to fight with, any kind of crowd noise, just communication's easier at that point, right? I mean, you could see the a coach barking out from the sideline at the quarterback.
Right.
If the quarterback doesn't see something he's supposed to see, you could almost shout it from the sideline and the quarterback could hear it, So I think in that respect, it's definitely beneficial for a team, installing a new offense, installing, a new quarterback. And, I'm like you, I'm excited to see kind of what ends up out there. It's kind of, I don't know, on the one hand, my brain wants to think of this as a 7-game, preseason for next year, when it, is actually going to count. But at the same time, I know once the games start being played,
it's not going to feel like that.
Yeah. I mean, if Oregon State starts, running the ball up and down the field on us, I'm going to be pissed for sure. So, because I can't help it.
Yeah. No matter how you want to frame it in your mind, once they're playing that football, it's gonna feel real, and it's because like you and I are both Seahawks fans, and there's nobody in those stands, but those games are just as intense, and I mean, obviously, especially this year, but like those games are just as intense. Sunday night had nobody in the stands, but that was watching on TV, like you were in it, and so I know that when WSU kicks off, it's gonna feel like football again. Because actually watching the other football, like I've never been to any of those stadiums. I don't have any connection to them. It'll probably be weird. I don't know how it if it feels weird for you as a Seahawks season ticket holder watching and knowing that I could have been there, but maybe if I watch, maybe if I watch like when Oregon comes to Pullman, it'll be kind of weird because that's always a fun game because the fans are usually more into it, and we should have had a one of those home schedules that drew fans this year. Because we had Oregon and we had UW and we had another one. I don't know. It's tough. It's going to be tough, like when they play in Pullman, but at the same time, I don't know. Like I don't know how it's going to feel. I think that people are still going to try to go to Pullman, unfortunately.
Oh, for sure. For sure. People are going to show up, and I don't know. Maybe they'll try and sneak a peek, try and stand on top of the library or
it's funny.
That staircase, whatever.
Yeah, in Cheney Stadium, the Rain played their first game back there, and then the Defiance have been playing there. And, like, you can go behind Foss High School, and there's, like, this, like, tree you can stand near, and you can kind of see into it. And, like, half a dozen people do that.
Yeah.
It's like, man, that stuff has been like, I wish I could be at those matches because, I can just like walk to Cheney Stadium. So I know I'll have some sadness watching that Oregon game.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty used to it at this point. I mean, and then I don't have the same thing you do where, you go to almost all the games in Pullman. So, I don't have, for me in general, watching games is limited to TV anyway. And I think, one thing I've sort of realized watching all these football games is that, because the camera, the way the camera is, like 98% of the time, the crowd is framed out anyway. It's not like the crowd is part of your viewing experience in general.
Right.
So I have found that football, I think, is less weird than a lot of the other sports where, so basketball playing in the bubble was weird. Like, cause you can definitely, when they're in an arena, you can definitely see like the people sitting on the sidelines. And I mean, there's people everywhere. Soccer, kind of the same deal because that has to go so wide that there's really no way to avoid, showing the crowd. But football, the way the camera angles are, it's really just the field. And so, I think for a while, I don't know, like you just kind of watch it and your brain thinks, this is normal. And then, like they'll go to a low angle or something on, after a play on a replay or something. And then of course that's when you really see, okay, it's like, completely empty or whatever. But I think football's been a little less weird watching during this, during all of this.
Yeah, definitely. And then they're like playing crowd noise in the stadiums. So like at the NFL has like a decibel level that you can't go over or something. I think it's like 70 decibels or something. I imagine that, WSU and Oregon State and stuff will be playing sound in there as well when they're on defense. And,
do something. I don't know. Like, I mean, even the soccer teams, MLS teams have been piping in supporter noise, even just like, and it's not loud, it's just, pretty low volume stuff, but just to kind of just give a little bit of atmosphere so that it's not just, an empty stadium. But I mean, it'll be cool once it happens. Like I'm having a hard time talking myself into getting super interested in. I mean, normally at this point, I'm reading every practice report. I'm like devouring everything I can. I think part of the reason why I'm not, I don't know. I mean, everything is weird, but we mentioned how none of the reporters can actually watch practice. So at that point, all we're really getting is coach and player interviews. And I find those to have extremely limited value for me in terms of learning anything.
Right.
And, Rolovich, after the first practice was, the things he said seemed to, really sort of put Cruz in front. And, other days he said other things about other guys. And, the thing that I always like to remind people, and always like to try and remind myself, is that anytime a coach talks to the media, they're not talking to you and me. Like they're not sending you and me a message. They're not talking out of the goodness of their heart because they really want us to know how the quarterbacks are doing.
Right.
Like they're talking to the quarterbacks. So when Rolovich says something about a quarterback, he's either talking to that quarterback or he's sending a message to another quarterback or whatever. But but that's the point of what he is saying. And so, if he says that somebody had a good day, he's wanting to encourage that guy. If he said, wow, I really liked how this guy did this thing, he's wanting to encourage that thing. If, he says a couple nice things about one guy and about a couple guys, and then maybe doesn't say something nice about the third guy, then you can infer that maybe he's, trying to motivate said guy. So, I try not to read too much into it. So I haven't paid that much attention to most of what's been said. Like I said, just because I don't find it to have a ton of usefulness to me. I know there's some people who just, they listen to those, they like, soak up every word. And I totally understand why. Just for me, I like to try and learn stuff if I'm going to watch something or listen to something. And, it's why I like the practice reports typically, because, somebody's there watching. I mean, you could tell from Theo's reporting 2 years ago that Gardner Minshew was going to win that job, right?
Yep.
Like, despite Mike Leach saying over and over and over again that it was neck and neck. And to be honest, it may have been more neck and neck than we realized, because Anthony Gordon turned out to be pretty damn good. But but for the most part, it was pretty clear that it was heading toward Minshew, and the people watching practice could pretty much see that. And so, in the absence of that, I whatever, I guess, I don't know. So we're a week into practice now, and I still am not all that into it. And like I said, part of it is, it's hard to take too much of what's coming out of it seriously. And so that's probably the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, and I agree. Yeah, it's been hard, and it's going to be hard when we're writing our previews and all that stuff.
Yeah, I know.
There's just so much.
I sat down and did the preview schedule, and I'm just like, I have no idea what we're gonna say. Like, I don't know. We'll just make shit up.
Yeah,
we'll just fabricate.
Well, one player we know that will not be playing.
Yeah, no longer a candidate for my defensive player feature.
Is Skylar Thomas, who, after entering the transfer portal and then coming back, is now transferring again. So
he's back in the portal. I didn't know you could go in and out of the transfer portal, but yeah, apparently you can. I don't know, man. This whole thing doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
None of these guys are having a year of eligibility counted against them. So if he's leaving, why? Right? Like, if he had just stuck around and played, he's not going to burn a year of eligibility, and then he could transfer at the end of the year. So why is he leaving now? Like, that doesn't make it, like, before when he went in, it made sense. He was one of a few guys who were like, yeah, I'm transfer portaling. The only one who actually left at the time, or like really kind of left right away, was Tay Martin.
Right.
Obviously landed on his feet at Ohio State, Oklahoma State, the other OSU. God. But Skylar Thomas, who, to be charitable, was bad last year, came back, and I think we all sort of read that to mean like there were not a lot of attractive options for him to leave. But that was when the team wasn't going to be playing. Well, now they're playing, and now he's leaving, and I don't know, man. Maybe he just lost his starting spot and is throwing a hissy fit. I don't know, but I don't know what sort of good explanation there is for leaving right now.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously the explanation is just, doesn't want to be here anymore. And so,
it's probably that simple.
Yeah.
And there
could be a million reasons for that. We don't know.
Yeah. There was
like we saw that, Cosmos Quete, he landed at an FCS school in Arizona, northern Arizona, but that's where his brother is playing.
And that's where he was from. So he's from the Phoenix area. Yep. When he came up here, so makes sense.
So he's going to play in Flagstaff with his brother.
Yeah, he's going to play with his twin brother too. So they're probably you would assume very close.
I'm sure he's going to destroy Big Sky opponents too.
Man, we could have used that guy. But
he's going to build up some very good lung capacity at 7,000 feet elevation in Flagstaff too.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. I mean, Skylar Thomas leaving doesn't. I don't know. Like, does that make you feel any differently about the defense? It really doesn't to me.
No, it's kind of funny my ill-fated NCAA simulation, which now I've decided I'm going to run after the season, just to fill in some of that season gap, because I actually have it set up, but it took me a while and a little money to figure out how to do it. But now I got to get myself into video game streaming since I invested something in it. But
I was kind of thinking maybe this was going to go the way of the top 10 Kook Center moments.
Oh, it definitely is headed that way. But I got it set up. I'm going to do it. It doesn't feel. It feels weird now that they're actually going to play games. So I'll do it as some off-season fun, and then I can kind of get the roster down right.
Yeah.
Because it would have been weird, I simulated a season with Cameron Cooper as a starting quarterback, and it turns out that Gunnar Cruz is the starting quarterback. And, Skylar Thomas was on the roster, but it's kind of funny. Like, I made him decent, but not the, like the maybe like a rotating fourth safety.
Yeah.
But the game just always kicked him out of the depth chart. It just always, no matter what. Even the younger guys who had lower ratings would be on the depth chart over him. So I don't know. Maybe the game knew more.
The game knows.
The game that was made in 2013 knew more about Skylar Thomas than I did.
The algorithm knows.
Yeah.
The algorithm always knows. I think I would have been more afraid for the defense if Skylar Thomas had been starting again. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
The fact that I know that he's not starting at least makes me think, all right, well, maybe,
Maybe they have another,
and it's not like guys can't get a lot better. That's definitely happened. Guy, makes a big jump from a junior to a senior. I mean, another safety, right? Taylor Tally. Oh God. Yeah. God. I'm struggling tonight. He had a really rough career and then was, pretty serviceable, I think, as a senior. So, I mean, those things do happen, but it definitely, I don't know, I'm more hopeful with the idea that, okay, this new staff has found somebody a lot better to play safety if Skylar Thomas isn't starting. So, and I don't want to crap on the kid. I'm sure he's a very nice young man, but quite frankly, he was not very good. So, hopefully he lands on his feet. I hope it's great for him. I hope it works out. It sounds like just from I don't know if Willie Taylor speaks for the entire defense, but when he was asked about Skylar Thomas's departure, he said basically, wish him well. And that was the end of the comment.
And I will say, for Skylar Thomas's sake, he did make some pretty big plays in his time at WSU. Had some pretty big interceptions.
Yep.
I think of a really athletic one he made. I believe it was against Cal, in a close game in Gardner Minshew's year in 2018. A really athletic interception near the end zone. And he made a couple other, big interceptions and stuff. He was a guy that made plays. He's just a guy that wasn't consistently always where he needed to be. So, I wish him the best.
Yep.
Yeah. To me, it's obviously he doesn't want to be here because, like you said, he could have just played this season.
You'd have to really
not
kept
his
want
eligibility.
To be here.
So, I did want to talk about one other quote, since you brought up a quote. Another quote from a couple days ago, which I found pretty funny, was, we can kind of think back to contrast of seasons here. So Abe Lucas, quote, Theo Lawson, it's from a video, but I'm reading Theo Lawson's transcription of it. I'm going to block for whoever. If we get the slowest QB or the fattest QB, I have to block for him. I have to shut up and do my job. But if I had my choice, yes, I prefer an athletic quarterback. Obviously, we saw the 2017 to 2018 kind of juxtaposition where I can't remember I can look up the exact totals, but I think we went from giving up 50 some sacks to I think like 18 sacks, and the linemen didn't get that much better. Yeah, like it wasn't suddenly, they were so much better. They were only giving up, 1 sack a game versus 4 sacks a game. It was, you went from Luke Falk, a statue who also held on to the ball a little too long quite often, to Gardner Minshew, who is, very mobile in the pocket and also obviously often quicker with his, reads and stuff. So you can see where, Abe Lucas, he didn't block for both of those guys, but you can see where that sentiment comes from. It makes you look a lot better when you lose against your guy, but the quarterback gets out of it, doesn't give up a sack, and so you don't have that on your record that you didn't give up a sack, and you look better for Pro Football Focus or whatever.
PFF's like, our number 1 graded pass protector.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that'll definitely be great. I do think that early on, we may want to temper some of that, just because I think given the nature of the run and shoot, I'm just assuming that there will be some moments of paralysis in the pocket, right? Where the quarterback thinks they're seeing one thing and then all of a sudden they see another, or they think they're seeing one thing and the wide receiver sees something different and breaks off the route and goes the wrong direction. So I think we'll either have a situation where, guys are maybe throwing, more interceptions than we like, or, they maybe look like Luke Falk back there. They're trying to pull the trigger, but they're not seeing things clearly. So
yeah, I'll just like to correct myself. 44 sacks in 2017, 13 in 2018.
Yeah.
So quite a drop. And so I thought that was funny, and I think all of the guys on the roster are closer to Minshew in terms of athleticism than to Falk.
Yeah.
Although I do remember when Falk was a sophomore, he did move a little more. He wasn't quite the statue, but I think he had quite a few injuries by the time his senior year hit, and he wasn't moving around much.
Yeah.
So football, man. One thing we didn't talk about, obviously there's that crossover game at the end of the year. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to go out on a limb and say WSU is not going to be in the Pac-12 championship game.
How dare you?
They were picked last. We can say that. I consider that in the realm of possibilities, that they would finish last.
Yeah. That's not crazy.
I don't think it's crazy, and I also think if WSU looks like there may be uncertainty, they're always going to get picked last.
Yeah,
There's no if I think we thought it was weird. A couple of years ago, it was like last year, they were actually picked pretty decently for WSU even after losing Minshew. So you're like, okay, there was actually some belief in the program, but we've lost that. We don't have a totally new program now. And so obviously if that happens, it's going to every writer is going to default to what they know. And it's that WSU has the least amount of resources, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And they're going to the bottom. But so all the other teams that aren't in the championship game, will be playing crossover games the next day. It's going to be interesting how they determine those matchups, but, do you think it's going to be like 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, 4 versus 4?
I would assume that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
I'd be really surprised if it wasn't, because you're going to have 1 versus 1 in the championship game, right?
Right.
So it makes sense to go 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3 on down, which means that we, depending on how we finish, we maybe may get a chance against like Arizona or Colorado.
If they're going, and it's gonna be interesting to see how they determine where those matchups are. Like,
yeah,
I think I can't, like, it's so funny. I can't remember exactly where we were. We were 4-5, 4 home, 5 away last year for the schedule, right?
Yep.
So we should have been 5-4 this year.
Right.
So I wonder if, but I guess the team you're playing could have also been in that situation. So
yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's going to coin flip, or maybe they'll determine it through record or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
That
coin
should
flip. I don't know.
That should be kind of fun though.
Maybe it's just take them to neutral sites.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll all just play in. Wait, is the Pac-12 championship game in Vegas this year?
It is in Vegas.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, let's just all play them in Vegas. Just
a
full day of football. It's like a little bubble.
Dude, that is the best idea ever.
They just start at 9 a.m.
It's like March Madness.
So how many games? So you need 5 games. So you can go 9, 12, 30, 4. No, that's not going to work. Shit.
That would be, that would be crazy.
Yeah. That would
and
be
you
fun.
could do them on Friday too. Like you could do, okay, so the Pac-12 championship game is at you could 5 o'clock or whatever, right?
You could do a couple before. You could do so 5 o'clock. You could do a
do one game leading up to it on Friday.
Do like 3
and
versus 3.
then play 4 games on Saturday.
Yeah, do 3 versus 3 before, 1 versus 1. Then start Saturday morning with 6 versus 6, and then we go into the primetime game as 2 versus 2, and in between is 5 versus 5 and 4 versus 4.
Can you imagine the condition of that field after 6 games in like 48 hours?
No, there's no way. There's no way the Raiders would let that happen. They would not let that happen.
And the Raiders are coming in on Sunday like,
yeah,
what the hell? The hell happened here?
Yeah, there's no way the Raiders. But maybe they could play some of the games at the
UNLV Stadium.
UNLV Stadium.
Yeah, maybe.
Whatever. Let's just have a little powwow. Yeah, that'll be interesting. It would be funny if on December 19th Arizona had to come to Pullman.
That would be funny. That would be super funny. Yeah. Yeah, I assume that's how they're going to do it, but who knows how they decide who plays where. I don't know.
Who knows? We'll see. It's kind of a fun thing. I hope they do it again after this year. After this not weird year. Just always do it. It's fun.
I do too. Like I wish they would do it. I think there's a logistical component to it, not in the sense of traveling to play a game on short notice. I mean, obviously the teams in the championship game do that. It's it's obviously doable.
Well, in the original championship game, they played in the home.
Which is what
for like 4 years. They
still should be doing, but
that's
neither here nor there. But I think the other piece though is like the championship weekend on the television is a pretty big deal for the broadcast partners to be able to do all the championship games.
And there's no other games competing.
There's no other games competing with it. So I don't know that those networks would be super jazzed up to have a whole bunch of potentially meaningless games. But at the same time, I don't know that television broadcasters have ever turned down inventory. So
right.
They'd probably find a place to put it and figure out a way to do it. And, I think that'd be a pretty slick and easy way to get to a 13 game season. And then also, from a, when we think about trying to get another team into, potentially into a better bowl game, right?
Yeah.
Trying to get into those New Year's 6 games. I don't know. You could very easily set it up so that, you're like again, do the 1 plays 1, 2 plays 2, and and really try to beef up somebody, or you could even just flip it around the other way, 2 plays 6,
2 plays 6,
and then just kind of go that way and give them another chance to pick up another victory. And
or what if they did like a lineup, like you 2, you pick who you play. 3, you pick who you play.
Have a little draft. Oh, I love that. I'm trying to remember. Somebody mentioned that as a way to revamp like the NBA playoffs. Like,
yeah,
if you're the number 1 seed, you get to pick from all the other playoff teams who your opening opponent is, and then if you're the number 2 seed, then you get to pick from whoever's left. And yeah, like that would be fun.
All right. Well, yeah, I guess we've probably talked that to death. Let's take a break, then we'll come back and we'll talk about hoops.
Yeah, hoops. We're back.
We're back.
Back.
So I heard the crack of a can earlier.
Hell
so
yes,
I
you
think
did.
You're drinking something, Jeff.
I am. Well, as we talked about last time we recorded, it is fresh hop season, and
It
so
is
this
indeed.
is the and this from a brewery that I know is near and dear to your heart as a native
Ooh.
Yakamite. Is that what it is? Is it a Yakamite?
I have no idea.
Yakaman.
Yakaman? I think it's like a Yakaman.
Yeah, I don't know. This from Single Hill Brewing.
Yes.
Near and dear to me too, because that's where we recorded from last year when we went to the Fresh Hop Festival.
One of the founders is a Coug.
Yeah, go Cougs. This is the Skyfinder Fresh Hop Hazy IPA, and I'm going to be super honest and say this is one of the best beers I've had in quite some time.
Excellent. I just, I think I got that one today.
Yeah.
I got
this
a couple.
is really good.
I got a
really,
couple
really,
freshies
really
from them that I plan on drinking this weekend. That's great. It's good to hear.
Yeah, so I love this. The color is a nice, like, almost kind of peach hazy color. And it just, outstanding beer. And I also got, I got another Single Hill same time. It was,
Lateral-A or Ecstasy of Green. Or...
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'll have to look. It was a double IPA. I do remember that. It was Science Box. That's what it was.
Science Box
2.0.
The colorful one. Yeah.
Yep. That was fantastic too. So, lots of good beers around right now. I mean, I picked up a 4-pack of the Field to Ferment from Fremont.
Right.
And then their latest Head Full of Dynamite too is the best of, it's like whatever it is, number 22 or whatever. I think is the best one of those I've had in a while. So yeah, lots of really, really, really good beers out there right now.
Nice. Yeah. I just wanted to, take a walk, and I walked up to Peaks and Pints, a store near me, and just didn't really have any, I don't really need any beer, but I just, I ended up buying a bunch of fresh hops, and I think on Saturday I'll have a few of those. And the Stoop fresh hops have been really good this year.
I got one of those in the fridge too.
Like with the skull on the face.
Yeah.
Yeah. So remember, I think I've told you this last time. If you look at the bottom of the can, it tells you what hop they use. Yeah.
Yep.
So I picked up the Mosaic and Chinook today. I'm really excited about that. I picked up a couple of the fresh hop Single Hills. Not that one, I don't think. Or maybe it was that one. The one I really wanted to get was Ecstasy of Green, but they didn't have it. I picked up some other great beers. I'm really excited. Stephanie, if you're listening, I'm bringing them over on Saturday after we go to the pumpkin patch, and take cute pictures of our kids. But I am drinking a beer that is kind of a classic for me, a callback to my time in Vermont. Was probably my favorite beer from possibly my favorite brewery in Vermont when I lived there. And the brewery is called Lawson's Finest Liquids. And the beer is called Hopzilla. Lawson's, when I lived it was this tiny, tiny brewery when I lived in Vermont. And the only way you could get their beer was you either have to drive to Warren, the town that they were in, and they had it at the Warren. There's obviously this little quaint, little very quintessential, looking Vermont town with little, like a little general store type thing in it, and they had their beer there, but otherwise they distributed it to like 3 different stores in the rest of Vermont. and I would drive to get their flagship double IPA is called Double Sunshine, and I would wait to see like if one of the 3 places that had it would like put on their Instagram or put on Twitter or whatever that they got it, and I would just like get in my car and rush to get like 2 bottles of IPA, like, which is nuts to me now, like, to do that.
Right.
But this particular Hopzilla one, I remember Lawson's had an event when I lived in Burlington at this beer bar, and I was drinking beer after beer, and this one just stood out to me. Like, it's this big double IPA. It's kind of this I call it, Lawson's had a lot of these beers that were kind of the transition period from these big bitter IPAs, like of the Stone era, like in the late 2000s, like 2008, 2009, and to where they were making these big IPAs, but they were using the modern hops like Citra and stuff, and doing a lot of dry hopping, and it wasn't about the bitter back end. It was more about like of a balanced hop profile with kind of a lighter malt profile. And so this is definitely, it's a clean IPA. It's not a hazy IPA. It's just a big, beautiful double IPA, but it's very easy to drink. It's much more balanced than a hazy IPA would be, in terms of you get a little bit more malt, but it's kind of this sweet malt that just plays so well. Similar to way their Double Sunshine, that was also one of my favorite beers. Hopzilla was just so rare to come across when I lived in there. Like, I probably only had it like 3 times maybe in my time in Vermont, but every time I would like order multiple, like, give me more of that. Because it was mostly, I would just find it on tap. And occasionally they would do a big sale in Waitsfield, this town next to them, where they would show up at a farmer's market once every 2 months, and they would sell a bunch of their beer at that farmer's market, and it would just be like, that was my first beer line. Like, it was just like lines at like 7 a.m, like, just to people to get. And I didn't even know, like, I wasn't into, like, I didn't know that people lined up for beer at that time. I didn't know. And so I'd show up and it'd be in this big line, and I wouldn't max out my allotments. I would just go, I just want one of those and one of those. I'm not here to spend $100 on beer. What, are you crazy? So I'd buy like 5 beers, and there's people hauling out like cases of it. Like, what?
And they're looking at you like, just
what is
one?
that? What, that guy waited in line for 2 hours to buy 5
to get
beers?
one beer?
Yeah, right. But Hopzilla, I think I got once in a bottle. I definitely got it. I remember I'd find on tap a couple times, so I just loved it. Like, I loved it. And so I was just, it was a couple weeks ago. I was just on, had a couple beers on a Friday. I was just like scrolling through Instagram on my phone, and I had this sponsored post from some beer store in New York that Hopzilla was like on it. And I was like, oh, weird. And so I clicked through, and they had Hopzilla, which they now have in cans. This like green can with a monster, like a Godzilla looking creature holding a giant hop cone. It's a pretty cool can, but they were in there. They were selling Hopzilla, and so I bought like 6 of them. I loaded up on some other beer just to make the shipping worth it, and I got really excited, and it showed up while we were in Leavenworth, and I was like, my mom was house sitting, and I was like, hey, as soon as that comes in, please put all those beers in the fridge.
Straight into the fridge.
Like, you have to sign for a package. Open that package up, put it in the fridge. You can have one of them because you deserve it. But yeah, so I've been really excited. I've been slowly drinking through them. This is, I think, my second to last one. So I thought, I don't know whenever I'll get to have a Lawson's. This is one of my, all-time, one of my beers, like one of the breweries that really got me beyond the grocery store beer sort of thing, and got me into, like, there are beers that you can rarely find that are very much worth seeking out. And so I always they were very much a Vermont brewery. They're very cool, and highly recommend if you're in the Northeast and see their beer somewhere, like, to check them out. And Or if you go to Vermont, I think they have a bigger facility that you can actually visit now. That's why they're able to can these beers and all that stuff. But yeah, so I'm really enjoying it. It's very much a throwback to like 2011 for me, the types of IPAs that I would just crush when pretty much almost all I would drink was IPAs, that I would just crush all the time. And yeah, it's kind of like I said, it was like a transition to the hazies because it lessened the bitterness, more about dry hopping, more about aroma, and then that kind of led to the hazies where they almost took away all the bitterness and they gave it these hazy bodies and all this stuff. But yeah, Hopzilla, Lawson's Finest Liquids, awesome. But I guess we can go back to Cougar Sports now.
No, let's keep talking about beer.
Yeah.
Nah, people probably want to listen to us talk about basketball.
Yeah, you can stop hitting the plus 30 second now. We're done.
Now you're gonna have to rewind 15 seconds to get back to, because you skipped too far. No.
But yeah, so basketball.
Like they're starting practice tomorrow, I think. Something like that.
Kyle Smith had a Zoom call with media yesterday or today.
When I say tomorrow, we're talking like Thursday.
Yeah.
Because we're recording this on Wednesday night.
So like
October
the day
14th.
that you're listening to this, or the day before you listen to it, I don't know. They'll probably be practicing when you're listening to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're it's happening. It's beautiful.
It's very exciting.
It's actually starting, relatively on time.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, they're going to have something resembling a real season.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Then, obviously the schedule is going to be thrown together over the next couple weeks, or the next month, I guess. Sometimes I forget what day it is. But yeah, so right now, they're going to host a multi-team event, an MTE, Jeff.
Yes, I've become familiar with the term the acronym MTE lately.
Yeah.
We used to know those as holiday tournaments,
yeah.
But apparently they are now MTEs.
Yeah.
Multi-team events.
But so Thanksgiving week, which I just took the whole dang week off this year, which you probably get off for school.
Yeah, I get about half the week off.
But yeah, so I'm, all the basketball, throw it out there. But yeah, so they're expecting I think the 24th and 26th. They're going to host 3 other teams, I think, for a multi-team event. So they'll probably play a couple of them. So that'll be the way they kick it off. December 2nd, their first Pac-12 game. If you may remember, Pac-12 is going to move to a 20 games conference schedule, and so there were going to be these December conference games. And so December 2nd will be the first conference game, and against guess who? Oregon State.
That's funny.
Yeah. So and then there's I think talk of like a late December game against Eastern. So there are games that will be happening. We know for sure.
Yep.
And that's pretty exciting. Obviously we lost CJ, but there's still, a heck of a lot of exciting new talent coming to the program.
No, like super exciting. As we've talked, pretty endlessly about the recruiting class and about what the staff was able to do there and the talent they were able to bring in. It's going to be interesting to see what they're able to do with so many young guys. In a lot of ways, it's not all that different than in the situation with football, right? I mean, we don't have a new coach, so that's good. But you are bringing in a whole bunch of new players, and not just talented kids who are going to be able to kind of ease their way in. They're going to play. The young guys are going to play. There's definitely minutes available for guys. I mean, I think especially
with the departure of
CJ. So you look and you go, okay, so who are the guys who are probably guaranteed to play, pretty significant minutes? And I think the list is Isaac Bonton and Tony Miller.
Right.
I think that's the list. of guys who are pretty much guaranteed to play heavy minutes. Some people might say Noah Williams. I think some of that's going to hinge on, how much his shot has developed. Because,
and I think it might hinge on how much, if they need him to run point as well.
Yeah. So, some of that's going to kind of depend on, maybe whether Noah Williams has taken a little bit of a step forward with his game. But I mean, he's going to have some competition, You've got, obviously we've talked, a lot about, Andrei Yakimovsky, probably, the highest rated guy, to sign with us since Klay Thompson, which is a pretty
There's
big
a
deal.
spot open at wing.
Right? Yeah. There is a spot open at wing. And so he'll play, I'm sure, play quite a bit. It just kind of depends on how, I think a lot of it depends on how the point guard situation shakes out.
Yep.
I think it really depends on, is Isaac Bonton your point guard, or do they find someone else who can run the point while Bonton moves off the ball? I think the preference would be to have Bonton moving off the ball.
Yes.
Because he's not a real natural point guard. And that's not a knock on him. That's just, he's a scorer. I think anybody who watched the team, I think, would know that. That he obviously prefers to shoot. He prefers to score. That's really his skill set. And while he's a competent passer, he's not a great passer and not a great ball handler in the sense of taking care of the ball. So, and again, maybe that improves and maybe he can run the point, but I do get the sense that the preference would be to find somebody else who could do the majority of the ball handling, and let him, work his way around off the ball, because there's going to be lots and lots and lots of shots available, with CJ gone. So,
yep.
I think it'd be nice to be able to maybe get Bonton the ball in spaces where maybe scoring's a little advantageous for
not
scoring.
Not off the dribble all the time.
Yes, rather than pull-ups and trying to force his way into traffic or whatever. Which we went over that a lot last year, where he took a lot of guff for that. But to be honest, it's
someone had to do it.
Yeah, someone had to do it. He didn't have a lot of options, so. But yeah, it's, outside of those two guys, really everything's kind of up in the air. I think even the front court, is up in the air. Markovetsky is obviously the incumbent, at center, but, Abajidi and, Deshaun Jackson. Sorry, man, I'm having a hard time with names tonight. This is what happens when we don't podcast often enough. I'm like, all my smooth, transitions and name remembrances are messed up. But
yeah,
I think any of those guys, honestly, I would not be shocked if Markovetsky was not the starter, not because there's anything wrong with him or anything like that, but like a guy like, for example, Abajidi brings just a different kind of athleticism to the front court. Markovetsky is a really nice player, especially defensively. Does a lot of things protecting the rim, but it's not the kind of guy who's going to match up with the most athletic players in the conference. So.
And you can throw the backdoor oops to Abajidi.
Yeah, which you can't really do with Markovetsky. So, I think everything's very wide open, and as Smith said in his conference call today, they're gonna defend, and they're gonna take care of the ball, and they're gonna rebound, and those are the guys that they're going to look at. So, one interesting name that came up, and curious to see what you think about this, but, one of the I would say probably the least heralded recruit is TJ Bamba, and that was a name that came up right away from Kyle Smith as a guy who may play immediately. So I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I'll say he's the least heralded, but there was still some impressive things about him, and again, he's a 6'5" point guard. So, I mean, you love that automatically. So if he's good, then that's great. And he came up as a guy that is more likely to have the best chance at starting. He obviously be competing with Ryan Rapp for minutes. But 6'5", 208 coming as a freshman guard is pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know if you watched any of his video from last year, but physically developed, definitely, maybe the most physically ready guard in this class for sure. Like he's ready.
Well, yeah, you're talking about
he
is 20 pounds heavier than Noah Williams.
Yeah.
And Noah Williams has been in a college program for a year.
Yeah.
So like he's a built dude. Like even if you just look at his little headshot, you know, he's got the neck, he's got the shoulders, like he's at least going to be able to handle the, you know, banging with guys down low.
He does not look 18. We'll just say that.
So I'm hoping that translates to, and I'm guessing these are the type of guys that Smith is looking for, but I'm hoping that translates to a solid defensive guard. You know, because we saw that, you know, with a guy like Rapp the same way, that the length just makes such a difference on defense.
Yep. And
to be able to check the other team's point guard with a 6'5" guy is just, you know, automatically a bonus, and especially if he's strong enough to actually, you know, bump with guys. So, yeah, it's interesting. You know, we can kind of look. We have the roster now with the weights. I think you and I were marveling at Jazz Kuntz's. I think about
212
30 about 30 pound jump in weight.
Yeah.
212. So Jazz has been lifting, but he's been in that if it's open, I guess, in the nutrition center, putting down meals.
Yeah, he was listed at 198 last year, so it's about it's about 15 pounds, but still, that's significant.
It is very hard to gain 15 pounds when you're an athlete.
Yeah, it really is. Like
that's why, you know, people always want to like Robbie Cowgill to gain weight. It's like,
so not as easy as it sounds.
What would happen? He'd try to gain weight, but then you burn so many calories every day. Like they're like, oh, he's eating 7,000 calories. Well, yeah, he's burning 5,000 calories every day. So
playing basketball and
just yeah. So it's only so much you can gain, you know, and plus you got to try to gain the right way.
Yeah, I mean, they're not sitting around drinking beer all day like you and me during quarantine.
It's not sitting right above the belt, you know.
But I would say that, like, the pictures I've seen of Kuntz, it looks legit.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's definitely in the arms, and
I mean, it looks like he's added something. And I'll be really honest. I mean, you know, I think there was a sense that under Ernie Kent. How do I put this gently? Like, I'm not sure everybody was working as hard to be awesome as they needed to work. And I don't know that was necessarily on, you know, on the players, you know, like I don't know that I look at, you know, Jazz Kuntz and go, why weren't you working harder? Like, he seems like a good kid. But it just seemed like there was kind of an ethos around the program of, maybe not doing all the things that needed to be done to be successful. And so it would not shock me if there was a lot more of an emphasis on that, you know, with the new coaching staff and, you know, really, really getting guys motivated to, you know, put in the work. And, you know, Kuntz was one of those guys, you know, who was stuck here, right, during when everything went crazy with COVID. You know, he couldn't go home.
Couldn't go home.
So, and I know that the facilities were closed, but I'm sure that, you know, he figured out ways to get his work in Pullman. I'm sure the coaching staff was in close contact with him. So, it doesn't shock me there.
Well, I'm thinking, I mean, honestly, if last year you have to bang against Markoveski all day in practice, like at some point you got to be motivated to be like, this hurts and I need to be able to push back a little bit.
Well, and he lost all his minutes, you know, as the season went along. Like, he just couldn't physically compete in the Pac-12.
Well, and he wasn't hitting outside shots, and
that was part of it too. But, like, you know, you can't, again, you know, Smith's like, look, we're gonna defend, we're gonna rebound, and we're gonna take care of the ball. Well, Kuntz just could not rebound. Like, he just,
I think Kuntz is probably a plus defender, but he's just not a good rebounder.
And he's a smart guy with the ball. You know, he moves the ball, and if he can hit some threes, then you're in good shape. But he was just getting, you know, murdered on the glass. I mean, his defensive rebounding percentage for the year was 15%. But if you give me 5 seconds,
4 though.
If you give me 5 seconds, so that's not good for a 4. And then beyond that, let me look at his conference games. Okay, it was 14.7% in conference games too. So it was about the same, but still.
That's
that's
not
good.
For,
like that's
for
bad.
For a guy who primarily plays the 4 and sometimes the 5.
That's legitimately bad. And by comparison, Noah Williams was at 13%. So
he's playing a 2 or 3 usually.
Jervais Robinson was at 11.3%. So to play the 4 and only rebound that much,
you're the closest to the basket.
Yeah, is not good. Tony Miller was only at 12%, but that's kind of a different situation with him. Jeff Pollard was 10.9%. Also a different situation. Yeah. Jeff Pollard was 8% in conference. 8. 8.
I'm guessing that Jeff Pollard was never, ever actually asked to jump after.
No, I don't think so.
Jeff Pollard was just supposed to get in the way of everyone else.
His job was to box out. That was it. Don't even try to jump. Just box out, man. I would, if we got the coaching staff over a couple of beers and we were like, be honest, they would. I'll bet that would be the answer. That they were just like, yeah, we just told him to box out. Like we didn't even ask him to go for the ball. We were just like, box out. CJ Ellaby swoops in. I mean, CJ was the second best defensive rebounder in the conference. So, CJ swoops in from the 3-point line, grabs the rebound.
Maybe that's part of Jazz's numbers too.
Maybe. Yeah. Probably, but I mean, I think we both of us believe in numbers, but we also use our eyes. And the eyes were pretty clear that he was getting.
I mean, the 198 pounds was very clear.
Yeah.
Like when he's having to play against guys that are
198 might have even been generous.
Well, I think 212 will be generous by the time 10 games rolls
That's
by.
possible.
It's really hard for these guys to keep those weights up in the actual season. Yeah,
it's possible
because you're not lifting as much. You're not just gorging yourself all the time because you actually have to play basketball games. Like you're not going to wake up in the morning and eat 5,000 calories when you have to play a basketball game in the middle of the day. So, so it's, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Again, I'm really excited for basketball. At this moment, more than for football, I think just because of, we can kind of talk about this now, is what we've seen in the, obviously college football has been going on for a month basically now, almost a month. Most teams have been played 3, maybe 4 games already.
Yeah, 3 games this week. This is basically week 4.
Yeah, so it's been pretty normal for them. Like they're on a pretty normal schedule. We've seen them playing obviously in conference games mostly. Obviously, you have the exceptions like BYU, who is an independent, Notre Dame. But yeah, it's been pretty interesting to watch this play out. We were talking about it earlier, how, maybe perhaps the weirdness has led to some different results that you would not expect. Obviously, the most glaring different result is I don't think any of us expected Mike Leach to do so well in his first game, because we saw what happened in his first game at WSU.
Did not go well.
But then he kind of got back on schedule. All those Mississippi fans are just having the same season that we did in 2012. They're just having it a week late.
I know. We just didn't get the benefit of having Bo Pelini coach the defense against us in that first game.
Bo Pelini. Who would you take right now, Bo Pelini or Alex Grinch?
Oh, my God. Alex Grinch in a heartbeat. Sorry. At least, I don't know, man.
I don't know why I take some, because, Alex Grinch on the balance did a great job at WSU. Yeah. But Alex Grinch had some games where his defenses just fell apart.
Oh, yeah. No doubt.
And there's you take some satisfaction when you see Oklahoma's defense just fall apart.
Yeah.
It's a little bit so it's just like when you see Mississippi State have a shitty game, you're like, that happens.
Been there.
We know that
I know. I'm seeing one of the great, I tweeted this out the other day. I'm like, it is endlessly entertaining watching Mississippi State get the Mike Leach experience in real time. Just all of it. The highs, the lows, the stuff like, Leach showing up, 35 minutes late to his press conference. Like,
Which they'll learn, like, is just standard.
Is
like,
normal. Is
like,
normal. And so I'm just like, I'm watching all of this and I'm just like laughing, and it's just, it's great, and again, we're seeing all the tweets of, well, gee, I guess now we have the blueprint for beating the air raid. Just rush 3 and drop 8, and that's all you got to do to stop the air raid. And I'm laughing and laughing.
Well, yeah, 11 teams, or 12 teams in the Pac-12 tried to do that every year.
Yeah.
And really only one consistently succeeded.
Yeah, maybe 2. You could put probably Cal in that. Cal the last couple of years, you could put them in that.
Yeah.
Utah obviously executed it well last year. But,
because their defensive line was just so out of it was nuts.
The common thread there is that those were like the 3 best defenses in the conference. Weird, I know, that good defenses might, play well against an offense, but it was funny too. I was listening to ESPN Daily podcast the other day, and Ryan McGee did a story on Leach after the win against LSU. Just basically hey, can the air raid be successful in the SEC? Which of course is the SEC is some sort of like big, this is like the final exam for something, right? If it can't succeed in the SEC.
Also, by the way, the air raid started in the SEC.
Yeah,
it's not
in
terms
not real.
of major college football.
Exactly.
It started in the SEC.
Like somehow it's not real if it can't succeed in the SEC. So like the whole premise of it was just sort of like made me want to barf. But I'm listening to this interview, and another thing that made me want to just sort of barf was, it was the interview was the story was written before the Arkansas game, but the interview was recorded after the Arkansas game. So you had, they lit up LSU, and then the Arkansas game happens, and of course they lose that game, don't score a lot of points, and he goes, well, now, the blueprint's out there for the SEC. And I'm like, the blueprint's out there now, motherfucker. Like he's been running that offense for 8 damn years. Like anybody.
Well, he's been running that offense for 20 years.
Like, do things, like, I'm so mad about this. Like, do things like if it doesn't happen in the SEC, it's like a tree that falls in the forest and nobody's there. Like if it doesn't happen in the SEC, it doesn't actually exist. Like people have been doing this in the Pac-12 for 8 years. Like, they've tried to rush 3. I mean, look, Oregon has tried to rush 3 and drop 8 for years and years and years, and we have shredded Oregon over and over and beaten them over and over, right? Like we damn near beat them this year, right? And so it's like, well, last year, whatever year it is. And it's this is not new. It's not new. So, it's number one, it's not a shock that teams finally figured out, okay, let's drop back in zone and try and gum things up. Number 2, it's not a shock that KJ Costello is having a shitty time trying to figure it out. And it's not a surprise that when...
Yeah, we saw Jeff Toole and Connor Holiday try to figure this out.
Like,
in the first
we've been
year.
there. We watched this happen.
When the guys were open all the time against LSU, it was pretty fucking easy.
I mean, if you're just going to play man-to-man and let people outrun people,
blitzing
then
every goddamn down. Bo Pelini's blitzing 5 guys every down and like playing man-to-man up top. Like, that's going to be easy. That's perfect
so
for
arrogant and so stupid. And and so Arkansas is like, well, no, we're going to actually do the opposite. We're just going to drop back and play tons of zone. And, oh my God, KJ Costello can't figure out where the gaps are and the receivers don't know where to stop. And
they've only been playing this offense for like 2 months, or a month at this point. So
and then you go play Kentucky, which actually, has a defensive coach for a head coach, and they've had a pretty good defense now for a number of years. Like, that's what you get. This is what you get. It's going to take a couple years. Like, I don't know. It's good. Like, we talked about this, and all of us, Kook Center guys talked about this on Slack, that it was going to be a rough transition. And after the LSU game, we kind of went,
maybe not.
Well, maybe not. And then, like, the last game was like, there it is. Yep. Exactly what we thought.
Well, I think I said when the Arkansas game came up, and I'm like, this is absolutely a game Mike Leach would lose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Arkansas hadn't won a conference game
you
in 2 years.
You are flying high after beating LSU and then faceplant.
But, exactly. Like, it's going to take some time.
Yes, it's going to take some time.
But they'll, like, give them, like, give him like 2 years. Have a quarterback that's been in the program for 2 years.
Yes.
Has been right in the area for 2 years.
Yep.
Suddenly that drop eight's only going to work maybe for like Alabama.
Yep.
And like, so
yep.
it's not going to be like, I don't know. It's just, it's going to be, it's going to go from like, it was kind of fun watching the LSU game to it's just going to be the frustrating same old shit over and over again. I don't want to only talk about Mississippi State, although we'll probably keep talking about them because it's interesting. It's just interesting.
I do want to say this. Like, another piece of this is watching Mississippi State fans like losing their shit about, well, maybe this doesn't work. Maybe it's like they're just
and we have to resist being the
being the Texas Tech widows.
Fan.
Yeah,
oh my god,
we had lots
Texas
of those.
Tech widows. Yeah, some of them may be listening to this. Maybe they stuck out with the.
I
WSU.
doubt it, man. Leach isn't our coach anymore. They don't care
Mississippi
anymore.
State. Yeah,
they are now Mississippi State fans.
Yeah, they're like LeBron fans.
Yeah,
just move with him.
They just move with him.
But yeah, it's
watching the Mississippi State fans sort of like the one thing I'm noticing is everything's moving kind of in hyperspeed compared to what we did, right? Because we were just so tickled to have him.
It's that SEC speed,
right?
baby.
That's what it is. We were so tickled to have him that like all of this stuff that happened over time, it really took kind of 2.5 years or so really to kind of get to the 3 years to get to the point where we were like, I don't know about this, Mississippi State's like 3 games in the middle of a pandemic, and God damn it, what the fuck is wrong with this? This is messed up. All you got to do is drop 8 people, and this doesn't even work. Why are we even trying this? And I'm like, holy shit, man. You guys are like, this is like so fast. They are just, they've like skipped over all the honeymoon.
Well, Mississippi State definitely didn't have like the depths of despair that we had before.
And they are not very far separated from really their most successful stint in program history, which was when Dan Mullen was there. So, that is fresh in their mind, and that's what they're. The previous coach they fired after 2 seasons, right? I think 2 seasons. Yeah. So the idea
Mullen's
is,
only
look,
been at Florida for a couple years. Yeah.
So we will not stand for this. We fired a guy after 2 years to bring in another guy. So it's if he doesn't figure out a way to get that offense to produce here pretty quick, man, people are not going to have a lot of patience for him at all. So way less patience than we had. That's for sure.
Oh, and speaking of Dan Mullen.
Dan Mullen, who wanted 70,000 people in the swamp.
90,000
people. I don't even know how big that stadium is, but whatever it is, however many tens of thousands, however many tens of thousands of people wanted them in there, packed in there, and they're not even a game for them to play this weekend.
Yeah, because a quarter of his team has COVID.
Oh my God, it's insane to me. Like this idea that 20 people might test positive on a team, and it's just like, and that's where we're at right now.
Yeah,
Florida, we'll just postpone it. We'll be back next week with 20 guys who have COVID. Like, what the hell, If you had told me in July that, hey, we were going to be, mid-October and a team was going to have 20 positive tests, and all they were going to do is postpone a game, and
not cancel,
not cancel the season, not like have some sort of serious reckoning about whatever they're doing, that they would just be like, all right, well, we'll just postpone this week. We'll see you next week. I mean, I would have laughed you out of the room. I would have been like, no way. No way. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Everybody understands this. Like no way. But nope, we've given up. Good job, America. We're just like, 20 positive tests. Meh. Vanderbilt barely made it through their game last weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, the SEC is teetering. I mean, Nick Saban's got COVID now.
Nick Saban has COVID.
And if he's got it.
And the AD at
if he's got it, they haven't said if they've got positive tests on their team, but if he's got it, guaranteed players do. Maybe it's not showing up yet, but.
Well, that's probably where he got it from.
That would be the assumption, right?
Yeah.
So they're not testing positive yet, but they're going to. So then what? I don't know, man. This is all, it's so bonkers to me. So bonkers to me.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch the Pac-12 season play out. And
it's going to be funny if the Pac-12 ends up looking like the ones that did it right in the end, and the Big Ten,
after taking so much shit.
Yeah, because the Big
Ten in particular took a lot of shit.
Yeah,
because honestly, their communication was awful.
Yes. But then they totally redeemed themselves by aggressively forcing their way back into a season.
Which they totally did without any outside pressure in any way.
Oh, yeah.
It was totally, well, I mean, you could say that for the Pac-12 too.
Yeah. But if they can play, if the Pac-12 and the Big Ten can play their seasons uninterrupted, then, that'll be a success. But I mean, like every other, the Big 12 and the SEC.
The NFL hasn't been able to do it.
Baylor's a mess, right? I mean, that's very fitting for Baylor. So,
yeah, Baylor is a mess is just kind of the standard.
Yeah, evergreen.
That's just what Baylor is a mess.
Yeah, well, So I kind of.
How much?
What's it going to take for people to care? Like, is it going to take someone dying? Like, is that it?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe someone just suffering some more effects beyond, the fever and stuff. Maybe some actual like lung damage that they're having trouble recovering from, and then they'd have to probably be a player that was fairly prominent.
Yeah, I mean, would it have to be Trevor Lawrence or something? I mean,
yeah, like, and obviously we're not just hypothetically, yeah, probably. I don't think. I mean, they had. There's 20 plus players with it on one team, and they're not canceling the season.
Right.
I don't know what's going to make them cancel the season. If a quarter of a team has it and they're not canceling the season, I don't think they're going to cancel the season for anything beyond, maybe a death. Like,
I mean, it's got to be hospitalizations or death. Like, that's,
and and we talked about this. I don't know if we've talked about this on the podcast or maybe we talked about it just personally. That's with these populations, it's the likelihood of those things happening is much lower.
Right.
They're the healthiest of the healthy people.
Right.
Maybe not the linemen. They're very big.
Yeah. They would have what people might call comorbidities.
Yeah.
Given that they are, by definition obese, but.
Yeah. But also probably could in way better shape than you are.
Yes.
But it's I don't know. Obviously I hope it does not come to anything like that. I hope nothing like that happens. I hope I hope that all the 23 players or whatever are fine and have no long-term effects. They're just sick. It's like, if it's just like having a cold or whatever, and then they're over it, and then they can play and then they can live their lives. But yeah, if that's just what's going to happen, then fine, let it happen. Yeah. But yeah, I hope that we're just not careening towards a path of disaster here, and that we're just like we're just playing with probabilities and we're playing with odds to the point where someone's going to catch it and something bad's going to happen.
Yep.
And honestly, it's when you start seeing the coaches catch it is when you get a little more worried. Is like Nick Saban is not a young dude.
He's 70, right? Like, he's not young. I saw on SportsCenter he's in his 14th season at Alabama, and I about fell out of my chair. I was like, "Oh my God, it's been that long!" Like,
and he doesn't have 14 titles. What?
Yeah, what you been doing over there? No, like, look, my most sincere hope is that a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, everybody gets to laugh at you and me for worrying so much.
Yeah,
like that, like truly. Because I realize when we talk about it, it can come across as like, number one, obviously we are both just sort of like, worst case scenario, like, we're more likely to want to be safe than anything else, which I get is, different than the way a lot of other people see the world. And I'm sure there have been people who listen to the podcast and been like, everything's going to be fine. And, I hope against hope that that's true, cause when we sit here and we talk about it, I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, these 20 guys have COVID, is one of them going to die? I hope not. But it's not unheard of for someone who's, 20 something to die. Like, it happens, and if we're getting, all of these cases all over the place, the odds are that it's going to happen to somebody somewhere. And then the other thing is we don't know yet what this virus does to somebody long term, the things that it does to your lungs. And it's a vascular disease, or right? Like I'm trying to remember like the term, but it's a bloodborne disease. And so it gets into your blood vessels, and that's why people sometimes have a hard time breathing and things like that, is it's in there, and it's like, okay, so are these guys going to have long-term effects even if they are reasonably asymptomatic? We just don't know. And I get that some people are like, hey, we don't know, so let's just assume everything's going to be fine. I'm the kind of person that's like, we don't know, so let's assume it's going to suck. So I get that different people have different perspectives, but, like I said, my number one hope is that I end up looking foolish for being so worried about it. And I really hope that all these guys who have it, they turn out okay, and that the decision to play through this, ends up being a decision that, ends up looking, reasonable and okay, and that well within the boundaries of, what was a good idea, because the alternative, frankly, is just, I don't want to, I try not to think too much about the alternative, because then I get to a point where I don't want to talk about sports, and I don't want to write about the Cougars, and, because I just, I don't want to be a part of, the machine that ends up leading to somebody's, at worst death, and maybe even, lesser, permanent health problems.
Yeah. One thing I do find interesting, I've talked to Amanda about this. She's a nurse practitioner and whatever. Not that matters, but
it matters.
Yeah,
it matters.
Yeah, I know. But
she knows a lot more than you and me.
So what she said is like, COVID-19 is a coronavirus, and we have coronaviruses all the time. It's not a new thing. We have them every year. So we knew from the get-go that it doesn't live long on surfaces. How it typically is transmitted is through these droplets in the air, but we kind of at the start, maybe out of fear of running out of PPE for providers and stuff, we're focused on cleaning things, and we're focused on all this stuff, when really we should have been focused on covering our faces, and we didn't do that at the start. And yeah, obviously, the CDC screwed up on that. A lot of local authorities screwed up on that. It kind of down the line. I think it was just to protect this PPE supply. I wish it never would happen, because now we have this whole anti-mask thing. But it's true, like all coronaviruses, it is transmitted through droplets that you expel out of your mouth and nose and whatever. So that's what makes it so infectious in these close, quarters, is because people are just passing their droplets around, right?
Right.
And so these football teams are kind of like, if one person gets it, you're in these weight rooms, you're in huddles, you're in film study, you're in all these situations, like indoors quite often. And even like just when you're outdoors, you're so close to each other that there's a high risk of transmission. And even with all the testing, they're obviously missing things, and people are getting it. And like you said, hopefully it's fine, but it's just a very, very, like, that's the thing. It's a highly, highly infectious disease. It spreads very quickly. And so we can talk about the mortality rates, and yeah, they are pretty low. They are low. They're lower than other things that we catch. But the thing is, it's so infectious that it infects a lot of people,
right,
all at once.
Right.
And so, yeah, the mortality rate's lower, but more people have it. So you're basically playing the odds of someone dying.
You're still going to stack up the raw numbers because the number of infections is so high. Right. Yeah. So you're going to have a lot of deaths just because even if the percentage is fairly low, you're still going to stack up a high number of deaths because so many people get infected.
Yeah. And obviously because of the way it seems, because of the way it impacts people. If you are already what they call a vulnerable population, more likely to die, more likely to have long-term effects. So I'm hoping that, it doesn't impact these players, and they're fine. And like you said, we're the dummies, and like we're, next year we're laughing about how, they could have just been doing this all the time. It's fine. But I still think it's probably a good idea not to have, a bunch of people in the stands together, because that's where it's not just a bunch of 19-year-olds. But yeah, it's interesting. I hope the testing that the Pac-12 talks about is legit and prevents these sort of breakouts that we've seen in other parts of the country, and hopefully they're able to play and keep the players safe and keep the coaches safe, and then we're able to get through like a season without any major guilt.
Yep. I hope it all works out. I hope Nick Saban ends up okay. Like, supposedly asymptomatic at the moment. I hope that the president in chief, ends up okay after his little bout of hospitalization. And so, yeah. I mean, I hope everybody ends up okay, man. I follow a Twitter account called Faces of COVID that just sort of tweets about articles and things have been written about people who've died from COVID. And you just got to remember that it's, it is real. People are still, dying. So, just hopefully it doesn't affect anybody we know, and hopefully it doesn't, doesn't affect any of the players that we care about. And, yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't have much else to say about that.
Yeah, I didn't mean that to go into a big old COVID rant again, but I don't know, man.
It's the end of the podcast. I don't know how many people are still listening anyway.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know how you go through your life without thinking about these things, but whatever.
I don't know. Maybe some people don't. I mean, honestly, like I've thought about this, right? Like maybe there are people who just, they just don't think much about it, even though like it's everywhere right now and seems to be touching all parts of our lives. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe some people just don't think about it.
I shared with you a tweet from WSU Wellness Center. It's WSU Wellcoog. I don't know what that is, but they said in 47% of workers say the upcoming election has impacted their ability to do a job because of stress or whatever. I'm thinking like, what the hell are the other 53%? Like, I'm
right?
Jealous of all y'all, like, because I can't.
I know
this has been weighing on me a lot, So I don't like. I even think on both sides it must a little bit, Even if you're not like me, I feel like you must think the other guy is scary. I don't know. I don't think either of them are amazing, but still, I don't know. Like, I'm jealous of those 53% of people who can compartmentalize better than I can, because there are certainly days. Especially because, I just work online constantly. Like, you got to pull up, 538 forecast, pull up 270 to win. You pull up everything else, it's just every day I check that multiple times a day, and just what's the numbers? What does it say? What does this say? And so I've been very stressed about it. So I'm jealous of those. Obviously, apparently I'm in the minority. I'm jealous of the rest of y'all who don't think about this. Maybe your job is more interesting than mine. I don't know. It's just I'm definitely in that 47% where it's definitely impacted my ability to do my job.
Yeah, 100%. I had a good day at my job, though. I got a whole bunch of my kids to turn on their cameras during class today. So
whoa,
yeah, that was pretty. I don't know, man. I told the kids, man, it made my day, made my week, getting to see faces. We've taken a pretty lax approach so far to cameras because there's apparently a fair amount of emerging research talking about sort of the negative effects of having your camera on and staring at your face all day, which I can totally believe because I do it every day. Staring at myself all day, looking at my beard, looking at my hair, looking at, all the other things that people do. But yeah, so we've been pretty lenient with the kids, but I've gotten to a point now, we're in week 7 and I'm like, this is really hard when I can't see anybody. And all I can see is, basically we use Microsoft Teams. And so, all I see where kids should be is, circles with letters in it for initials. Yep. And, I'm really tired of that. So I asked the kids today, I'm like, hey, can you give me 5 minutes, just 5 minutes of cameras on while I take attendance? And they did it for me. So I was endlessly grateful for that. So little victories, right? Little victories during a pandemic.
Nicely done. We've definitely had, obviously I've worked remotely forever, but definitely at my work, we have used the cameras more since the pandemic. Because I do have coworkers that did go into offices but I didn't, and so they're used to seeing people, and so they turn on their cameras, and so you in turn turn on your camera, and then there's the one person like, do we have to? And you're like, no, like you don't have to turn on your camera, because who knows what your situation, like.
Well, that's exactly it for us. Like we do the same thing. Like it's, I don't, we're going, basically it's like going into kids' homes, right? So
yeah,
try not to be super pushy about it. But like Teams is nice in that, you can do backgrounds. Zoom does backgrounds too, but you got to you got to have like a green screen behind you or something for it to really work.
They don't work very well if you don't.
Teams works really, really well, and they've got a whole bunch of stock backgrounds. So I told the kids, I'm like, look, pick a background. Like I understand, if you're like attending class in the bathroom or something, I get it. Just, turn on a background and go that way. So most of them were really good about it. A few were resistant, and I was just like, hey, maybe let's try again on Friday for those of you who don't want to do it. So yeah, it went pretty well. Like I said, little victories, but it was, I have missed that a lot, being able to see kids and just talk to them and, hey, I like your hat. Where'd you get your hat? Stuff like that. I mean, just the dumb stuff that allows you to connect with kids and just not being able to do that. I have missed that more than I realized until about last week. And then I was like, okay, I'm really going to push them this week to try and at least for a little bit, get their cameras on. And sure enough, it was great. It was super fun. Like some kids, like, I don't know, man, it's cool. Like to get to connect with some kids on, like I've had some kids that I've gotten almost no work out of. They've been basically non-existent with most everything. And, we're a handful of them today, I was able to like see something, right? Like a hat or a hoodie or something on the wall where they were and be like, hey, what's, tell me about that thing on your wall. And it's like, oh, let me spend 5 minutes telling you all about this thing. And I'm like, okay, like finally, we're getting through to them maybe just a little bit. So yeah, that part was good.
Well, maybe we should do a Zoom podcast and let everyone see our face.
Maybe we should. I don't know. We did those. Remember when we did those on Google Hangouts back in the day?
Halftime and stuff.
It was me and you and Sherwood, and I don't remember who else was.
Brian sometimes.
Yeah, Brian Floyd sometimes. Yeah. Those were pretty funny. We were ahead of our time on that, man.
Yeah.
We were way ahead of our time.
Those were not quality
no
streams. We could do a lot better with the Zoom.
No, yeah, we could do much, much, much better now. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe we will. Maybe we'll have to do that. Like I don't know. Maybe we'll do it during a game or something. Maybe we'll do a post game show. That'd be kind of fun. Like instant react post game Zoom.
Yeah, I mean, now that we know no one's going to be at the game.
Yeah, like we'll all be available.
Yeah.
Unlike when half you guys are in Pullman or whatever.
Yeah, now it's going to be awkward when you're asking, can someone write the recap? It's like, I know y'all don't have anything to do.
None of you are in Pullman. No excuses. I need someone to write the recap. No excuses. No, it's yeah. I mean, there's only 7 of them this year. Maybe 8 if we get a bowl game. So.
And we go 0-7 and get a bowl game this year. So
that would be hilarious. A bowl game that nobody gets to go to anyway.
Hey, as long as they get the cool gear and stuff, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that is all that matters. As long as the players have fun, that's all that really matters.
Well, man, this turned out a lot longer than I thought.
It always does. We had a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah, we did.
So, well, I think we did. I think we did our catching up for sure.
For sure. All right. Well, thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, 5 stars on iTunes, whatever your service is. iTunes especially, that's where most people get their podcasts. Yep. I'm the Craig Powers on Twitter. Pod versus Everyone on Twitter is run by Jeff. If you have any email comments, like if you want to complain about us talking about politics too much, you can email podcastversuseveryone@gmail.com instead of emailing my personal email. I guess you can email my personal email because it's on Coug Center. So if you find it that way, go ahead.
Yeah.
But you can also email the podcast versus everyone at gmail.com as well.
Yeah.
And we're not going to stop talking about politics.
No.
It's just kind of inherent in our being. So we're not going to.
Yeah, I can always tell who the people are who have only recently started listening.
Yeah, because the first 20 episodes, we had a segment where we specifically talked about politics. So, and it's been very hard to avoid in this time. So
that's all right. We do try to we definitely dialed it
We've
back,
tried,
which is what's hilarious about the stop talking about politics email that we got.
Black Lives Matter episode that we labeled as Black Lives Matter, so you could just skip that one.
Yeah, you could just not listen to it if you don't want to hear. I mean, I would hope you would want to listen to it, but if you're like Black Lives Matter is just a bridge too far, Nooser, then that don't listen to it, man. I don't know. It's not hard.
You can always hit that 30-second button.
It's okay. We will never know unless you tell us.
Yeah, which some of you do.
Like people are like, I just always skip past the beer. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all right.
That's fine.
As we said,
let's talk about beer because it's fun.
As we said from the very beginning, this is for us, and it always will be for us. And so that'll mean that sometimes we do things that listeners don't like, and oh well.
Like record a almost 2-hour podcast.
Yeah. 148.
Well, you're gonna cut out. There's like a minute.
That is true. There's like a minute in the middle.
And you'll never know, listener.
That's right. You'll never know.
You're obviously a dedicated listener if you're still listening to this, or you're just in the car and you're not.
And you're like, "Where's the damn button? How do I skip to the next podcast?"
It's like I'll listen to the plugs at the end of podcasts just because I'm like, if I just let it run, it'll go to the next podcast.
That's what they're counting on.
Yeah,
that's what those advertisers are counting on. All right, dude.
All right, man.
Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter.